I have been tasked this morning to talk about the subject, Take the Book Journey, feeding your mind through the power of reading. There was a time in my life when I was much ashamed during my school days, both as an adolescent and as well as a teenager. And one of the reasons why I was ashamed was because every year May the 4th would roll around, and each year I would turn a year older. But one of the interesting things about being in my classroom was that I was always the oldest person in my classroom. And it was shaming to me because what had happened was that my mother had put me back in the second grade because my reading comprehension was not to where it needed to be. And so every year I would have a birthday because I was older than the person in my classroom. But then I come to understand as an adult why reading was important. You know, because today we understand and we know that jail cells and prisons are built based on second grade reading levels. But I don't think that my mother really fully understood that. What she understood and knew was that if I wasn't reading right at the second grade, that it would carry on throughout my life. So I want to give you 4 reasons why reading is important for both students and for both adults. Number 1, reading is important because it releases you from the prison of mediocrity. What my mother understood was that there is one thing that is worse than being physically in prison, and that is being imprisoned in your mind. Because when you're imprisoned in your mind, it limits what you have the ability to do. When you're imprisoned in your mind, it limits your conversation. And one thing I love about reading is that I don't have time for frivolous conversation because reading gets my mind thinking, and everything that I read, it wants me to be able to share. That's why I don't have time for gossipers, because gossipers don't have business of their own. And so they're so worried about somebody else's business instead of getting their own business. That's why they should read. Number 2, reading raises your expectation. My God. This is what Benjamin Elijah Mays, Pastor Wynn, says. He says, not failure, but low aim is a sin. Reading raises your expectation. The Bible tells us about faith being a hope. And that hope really means expectation. And so we have to raise our expectation through reading. I read this quote this morning, and it simply said, reading gives you some place to go when you have to stay where you are. Did you hear what I said? Reading gives you some place to go when you have to stay where you are. You can read about Paris right in your living room. You can read about going to New York City and spending and going on a shopping spree right in your living room. So reading raises your expectation. That's why it's important for us to read. Number 3, reading redirects your perspective. Instead of seeing the glass half empty, reading will allow you to see the glass half full. Because the Bible tells us to speak those things that are not as though they were. And so when you shift your perspective when you're reading, you might be in J.C. Napier Projects, but right now you're living in the White House because it shifts your perspective. And last but not least, what I understand and know that reading renews your mind. Scripture tells us, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Reading will renew your mind. And I couldn't leave without sharing this childhood story and what I want the young people to do, because I know it's not on television anymore. I want you to YouTube Reading Rainbow, LeVar Burton. And I didn't fully understand the song when I was a child, but I better understand it today. And it just simply said, butterflies in the sky. I can go twice as high. Take a look. It's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Friends to know and ways to grow. A reading rainbow. When you read, you can be like Judge Calloway. When you read, you can be like Pastor Antonio Drumwright. When you read, you can be the next type of Barack Obama. When you read, you can be anything that you want to be. All I want to leave with you today is take a look. It's in a book.